So Delta Airlines is talking about how they've managed to raise their ticket prices, and that sort of helped them offset the increase in jet fuel prices. I mean, we've seen jet fuel prices soar almost double, more than double since the war in Iran began, and that's really the biggest chunk of cost for airlines. And what airlines are talking about is saying that they've managed to pass on those cost increases to the customers in the form of higher ticket prices, and that's really helped them sort of continue to weather the crisis and be able to sort of manage to ramp up bookings. I mean, Delta talked about how in the last since the war began, they've had 5 of their 10 biggest sale days, and that sort of really shows that consumers are sort of locking in their travel at the moment.
That's great if you have the pricing power like a Delta Airlines, but what if you are a discount carrier that relies on low ticket prices to get your passengers, to get consumers to sign up? I mean, it's a different story, isn't it?
It is, and so Delta Airlines obviously has a predominance of premium heavy travelers, so they sort of talk about how they're targeting businesses and corporate travel, which is sort of continuing to see growth. They're also talking about how premium leisure travelers are continuing to buy tickets. But at the lower end of the spectrum, I mean, the Spirit Airlines and the others, they might see their consumers sort of balk at higher ticket prices, and they may put off those trips. Although we are sort of seeing JetBlue, we heard from JetBlue earlier today, and they talked about how they are also seeing people continuing to book. So it does look like consumers are trying to sort of get ahead of future price increases by locking in travel for the summer and the rest of the year early.
So how about the visibility? What are the airlines saying about the visibility of their bookings? I mean, that's also a metric that I know kind of gives you a sense of how confident they are in their business.
So at the moment, the airlines say the bookings look visibly healthy. At the other end of the spectrum, I mean, they're still talking about how they're not quite sure where jet fuel prices will settle, and that's sort of really key in terms of bookings as well as their jet fuel prices. So that's sort of, those two things go hand in hand and determine how profitable the airlines will be. Because remember, if they're able to sort of pass on higher ticket prices, but jet fuel prices continue to grow higher than those ticket prices, that's when the airlines start feeling the pain, because they're sort of not being able to keep up with their costs. On the other hand, if they can sort of take the higher prices and see costs come down, that'll sort of help them boost their profitability.
So one thing that you and your colleagues point out in your reporting is that U.S. carriers, unlike those in Europe, don't hedge fuel prices. Once upon a time, some of them did, but most of them don't anymore. Why the change, and do you think that because of what we're seeing in Iran, because of what we're seeing with the volatility, the uncertainty around oil prices, that airlines might start to hedge those fuel prices again?
So the airlines have typically not hedged. I mean, famously during COVID, a lot of airlines got stuck with hedges that were sort of in the wrong way, in the wrong direction when jet fuel prices crashed, when demand plummeted. And so at the moment, we haven't yet heard from airlines talking about returning to the hedging policies, but Delta does point out that they own a refinery, and that gives them somewhat of a natural hedge. And essentially, they expect that to help them weather the increase in jet fuel prices.
Hey, Sid, what are the airlines saying about the state of TSA today? We've seen a lot of stories and a lot of video over the last week or so of really long lines at airports. Do they have an opinion on how this might play out?
I mean, the airlines, including the industry groups, the Airlines for America has been talking about how there needs to be a deal that would basically allow TSA staff to get paid and basically start reducing those lines, because essentially the problem is that while it's not a safety of flight issue like the previous shutdown, when the FAA had to sort of cancel flights into 40 airports because of concerns about safety, this time it is sort of affecting the comfort of passengers and causing those long lines we've seen in various airports across the country. And essentially, the airlines have been saying that this will get worse as we get into the peak summer travel season. And so they're hoping for early resolution and a return to somewhat normal as they go into the busy travel peaks.
Yeah, speaking of the busy travel season of the summer, also at this conference, a lot of industry executives were making the point that if the Strait of Hormuz were not secured by Memorial Day, that would be a key time frame in which consumers might start to see ticket prices really go up even more than perhaps they already have.
Exactly. That would sort of take that would basically mean that higher fuel prices are here to stay for the slightly longer term, or we're not really sure when those fuel prices will start coming down, and that's when consumers will say, hey, do I really need to take 3 trips? Maybe I can just do with 2,
Yep.
or I can sort of not fly at all this summer.